The glass shattered before Eleanor screamed. My laptop flew in a short arc through the air of the family dinner. It crashed against the marble mantelpiece. The keys scattered like black teeth across the antique Persian rug. A woman has no right to speak of justice. My mother-in-law's voice cut through the silence. Her face was flushed. She was holding a silver knife. It was trembling. Richard didn't flinch. His arm slid from Chloe's bare shoulder. The movement was fluid, too fluid, as if rehearsed. "Catherine, darling." His smile was sweet and venomous. "I think it's time for you to leave. The company is mine now. Chloe brings a new vision." Chloe said nothing. Her red-nailed fingers caressed the back of my husband's hand. She looked at me over the rim of her champagne flute. Her gaze was curious cold, like someone observing an insect. I took a deep breath. The air smelled of prime rib and lies. 10 years of ours at this long table. 10 years swallowing silence. 10 years swallowing contempt. I carefully placed my linen napkin down. It fell next to a piece of plastic. I turned toward the shadow by the dining room door. "Sophia." My assistant emerged from the gloom. Her expression was stone. Only I could see the spark in her eyes. The spark we had waited 3 months for. "Ma'am." Her voice was a professional thread. "Proceed. Immediate withdrawal of funds. Speak clearly, slowly, level 3. A blink. Almost imperceptible. "Level 3, ma'am. Complete." Sophia nodded. Once. Her finger slid in 3 quick taps on the tablet. We counted in silence. 1, 2, 3. A deep hum started in the mansion's guts. It was the sound of a dying monster. The lights flickered. Eleanor let out a shriek. "What's happening?" The Murano glass chandeliers went out, one by one. The room plunged into a reddish gloom. Only the fire in the fireplace remained alive. It painted dancing shadows on their faces. Richard jumped to his feet. His chair shrieked. "What the hell have you done, Catherine? Your company." I stood up, my skirt brushing against fragments, or what's left of it. The security system emitted a dry click, then another and another. It was the sound of all the electronic locks releasing at once. A burst of static on the street beyond the large windows. 2 pairs of headlights switched on. My car's right on time. "Goodbye forever, Richard." I walked toward the grand oak door. My heels echoed in the silence. No one tried to stop me. Not even Eleanor, just the crackling of the wood. "This isn't over," Richard roared at my back. His voice broke. "You're going to pay for this. Get back here right now." I didn't turn back. Sophia was already beside me. She handed me my black coat, the fine wool one, the one Richard said made me look like a widow. "The documents are in the car, ma'am," Sophia whispered. "And Edward's contact information too." I nodded. As I crossed the threshold, I heard the last sound. It was the noise of a crystal glass shattering against the door I was closing. Chloe had finally let go of her champagne. The New York air was cold, clean. I took a big gulp. The 2 black sedans were waiting. The driver of the first one gave a nod. "To the address on Lexington, please." My mother's apartment. I got into the car. Sophia sat beside me. The engine started silently. I looked out the window at the facade of the Sterling mansion on Park Avenue. It was a block of darkness, a black hole on the elegant street. Not a single light was left on. Sophia was working on her tablet. The blue light illuminated her serious face. "Withdrawal completed. The banks have the orders. They'll arrive first thing in the morning." "Good." I rested my forehead against the cold glass. "And the other thing, it's done." She swiped a photo onto the screen. She showed it to me. It was a scanned document, a notarized clause, dated 10 years ago. My signature, my father's Richard's. The prenuptial agreement is activated. It has all the signatures. It's legal. I smiled for the first time that night. It was a joyless smile, just cold determination. He thought it was just an old piece of paper, I said. A whim of my father's. A whim with teeth, Sophia replied. She closed the tablet case. What now, ma'am? The car turned onto 57th Street. We passed Grand Army Plaza, the fountain lit steadfast, unstoppable. Now, Sophia. I sighed. The war begins. My phone vibrated in my coat pocket. I took it out. The screen glowed with a name, Richard. I looked at it. I let it ring. Once, twice, 5 times. On the 6th ring, I turned it off. I didn't block him, just turned it off. Let him call. Let him scream into the void. To the apartment, ma'am, the driver asked. Yes. And tomorrow, first thing to Edward's office. I looked at Sophia. We have a company to reclaim, or what's left of it. Sophia's phone vibrated. She looked at it, raising an eyebrow. It's the house number. The landline. Ignore it, I said. It's not my house anymore. The car drove into the New York night. We left the Upper East Side behind its expensive shops, its full restaurants. It all seemed foreign to me now, like a movie set. I thought of Richard's face, his confident smile crumbling, of Eleanor's panic, of Chloe's stupid surprise. A strange warmth spread through me. It wasn't joy. No, not yet. It was something more primitive. Justice. Sophia broke the silence. Do you think they'll try anything? Something physical? No. I shook my head. The Sterlings are many things, but they're not brutes, they're snakes. They attack with paperwork, with rumors, with lawyers. And I looked at her. That's why we have Edward, the best snake of them all. Minutes later, the car stopped in front of a classic pre-war building. It was more modest. My refuge, the apartment that had been my mother's. No one, not even Richard, knew about it. Will you come with me, Sophia? I asked as I got out. It could be dangerous. Do you have family? She was already getting a small suitcase from the trunk. Mine, the one I had packed and left at her place a week ago. My family is in Pittsburgh, ma'am, and my loyalty is here. She offered me a thick envelope. The keys and the documents you requested. I took the envelope. It was heavy. It weighed a lot. Thank you, Sophia. Truly. She nodded. Let's rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. We climbed the stairs. There was no elevator. The smell of bleach and old cooking hit me. It was real. It was humble. It was mine. When I opened the apartment door, the air was stale, but it was free. There were no portraits of the Sterlings, no hunting trophies, just old furniture covered with sheets. Sophia helped take the sheets off the sofa. She placed my suitcase in the bedroom. She was efficient, silent. I'll go to a nearby hotel, ma'am, she said. I'll be here at 7 a.m. No. I stopped her. Stay. There's another room. It's safer. She hesitated. Then she nodded. As you wish. The night wore on. I sat in the empty living room. I listened to the city noises. Far away was the cushioned silence of the mansion. Here you could hear traffic, a distant argument. Life. I opened the envelope. I took out the documents. Contracts, photos, bank statements, the prenuptial clause, the crown jewel. I read it again. Clause 12B, drafted by my father, an old wolf who distrusted everyone, even my love. In the event of dissolution of the marriage due to cause attributable to the husband, including infidelity or fraudulent management, The contributing party, Catherine Hayes, shall be entitled to withdraw the initial capital and any generated capital gains with immediate effect on the assets of Sterling Enterprises, Inc. Richard signed it. He thought it was a formality, an unimportant detail. He never really read it, just as he never really saw me. I smiled in the darkness. Paperwork, always paperwork. Richard played at being king, but he forgot who financed the kingdom. My phone, now on, vibrated again. It wasn't Richard. It was an unknown number. A text message. It's Chloe. We need to talk. He's not who you think. Neither am I. The Carlisle Palm Court. Tomorrow 10 a.m. Come alone. I read the message twice, then deleted it. No, not so soon. Not so easy. Tomorrow would be another day. Tomorrow I would start reclaiming everything that was mine, or burning down what I couldn't have. I turned off the light. The darkness of the small apartment was different. It was protective. For the first time in years, I felt safe and ready for battle. The apartment smelled of dust and neglect. Sophia opened the blinds. The light of a New York dawn crept in, illuminating millions of particles in the air. 10 years. No one had lived here since my mother's death. There's coffee, Sophia said. She had found an old Italian coffee maker. The sound of the water bubbling was a familiar rhythm in the strangeness. Thanks. I took the cup, black strong, just how I liked it. Richard always complained. He said it tasted like tar. I sat at the kitchen table. I spread out the papers, the photos. Sophia's report was meticulous. 3 years. Richard had been siphoning funds for 3 years, small amounts at first, then larger ones. Shell companies in Panama, an account in Switzerland, in Chloe Vance's name. The largest transfer was 6 months ago. Sophia pointed to a line, $2 million, to Bellamar Holdings. The address is a post office box in Andorra. Bellamar, I repeated softly. A name that leaves no trace. And Chloe, who is she really? I don't know yet. She seems clean, too clean. Sophia frowned. Corporate lawyer specializes in mergers. Worked for Delgado and Associates until last year. Then she appeared in your husband's life. My phone vibrated. The unknown number again. Chloe. I ignored the call. A message appeared. Don't underestimate this. Richard has already spoken to his lawyer. They're going to go for everything. For the clause, too. 10 a.m. Palm Court. I can help you. She's insistent. I showed the message to Sophia. It's a trap, she said without hesitation. Probably. I took a sip of coffee. It burned. It was good. But it's also an opportunity. We need to know which side she's playing on. Sophia nodded. Then we'll go. I'll go, I corrected. Alone, as she asked. You'll be nearby, listening. We finished our coffee in silence. Sophia began to go through the apartment's documents, the boxes my mother had stored, old bills, letters, memories of another life. I just stared at the report. 3 years. While I was running the company's legal department, while I was saving contracts, while I was growing the business that bore his name, he was robbing me calmly, patiently. I remembered the night I arrived at the Sterling mansion 10 years ago. A bride with a dowry of $15 million, a lifeline for a drowning family business. Eleanor greeted me with a cold smile. Richard is so lucky. Beauty and solvency. Dad signed the checks with a trembling hand. His cancer was already advancing. Watch your money, honey. The Sterlings are charlatans. They have the name, but they don't have the grit. I didn't listen to him. I was in love, or thought I was. My phone rang again. This time it was a known number, the office, or what was left of it. Hello, Mrs. Sterling. It was the tense voice of Ricardo, the head of finance, a man loyal to the company, not to me. There are agents here from the bank. They say there's an order for a total liquidity withdrawal, that the company is insolvent. Is it true? It's true, Ricardo. A silence, then a heavy sigh. My God. And the employees. This month's payroll. The bank will cover the basic obligations. It's part of the procedure. My voice sounded flat, professional, as if I were talking about another company. You cooperate with them. It's for the best. The best. His voice cracked. Ma'am, this is a disaster. People have families. Richard is here screaming, saying that you've betrayed them all. Richard has no authority anymore, Ricardo. The company has been in receivership since 3 a.m. this morning. I looked at Sophia. She nodded, confirming it. Do what the bank's people tell you. And Ricardo, get a good labor lawyer. I hung up. I couldn't afford compassion. Not yet. Sophia approached with a dusty cardboard box. Look at this. Inside were old folders, and underneath a leather-bound notebook, my mother's journal. I opened it at random. March 3rd. Catherine brought that boy to dinner. The Sterling boy has a liar's eyes. John doesn't say anything, but I see he's uneasy. My girl is so blind. I closed the notebook. A sharp pain shot through my chest. She knew. She always knew. Ma'am, Sophia pointed to something in the box. A thick brown envelope with a wax seal. It bore my name and one word, instructions. I opened it with hands that trembled slightly. It was my father's handwriting, strong, clear, even in his last days. Catherine, my daughter, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you've had to come back here to this apartment. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't firmer. I'm sorry I didn't break that engagement when I could. But if you're here, it also means you've realized, or they've hurt you. So listen, the money you brought to the Sterlings wasn't a gift. It was a loan with conditions. It's all in Clause 12B. Yes, but there's something more, something I didn't put in the prenuptial agreement. At the bank in safe deposit box, 747 in your name. There's another document. A power of attorney I named you years ago as the sole administrator of a trust fund. The Silence Trust. It's a cushion, Catherine. It's what truly belongs to you, what no judge, no husband, no Sterling can touch. The key is today's date, or the date you need it. Use this money to start over or to sink them. You decide. But do it without looking back. Always loved you, your dad. I let the letter fall onto the table. Sophia read it. Her eyes widened. A trust fund, she murmured. How much? I don't know. I answered, my voice hoarse. But my father didn't do things by halves. My phone erupted again. This time it was a video call from Richard. His face appeared on the screen. Haggard, furious. The background was his office, or what was left of it. Boxes were visible. Where are you? He spat. Do you know what you've done? You've destroyed everything. My family's company, my father's legacy. The company I saved with my money, Richard, I said calmly, holding the camera so he couldn't see the miserable apartment. Just my face. The legacy you and your lover were plundering. That's a lie, he shouted. But his eyes dropped for an instant. Chloe is a partner, an investor. Siphoning funds to Bellamar Holdings for 3 years is not an investment, Richard. It's a theft. I named the shell company. I saw him turn pale. And your partner has an account in Zurich. Interesting for a salaried lawyer. He fell silent, breathing heavily. What do you want? He finally asked, his voice a rough thread. I've already taken it. I said. Your company is no longer yours. The banks have it, and Clause 12B is in my lawyer's hands. You get to keep the debt. That yes is all yours. You won't get away with this, he muttered an empty threat. I have friends. I have influence. You had I corrected. Friends flee from sinking ships, and yours, my dear, is already underwater. Before he could answer, I hung up. I blocked his number. Then I looked at Sophia. We need to go to the bank. Now. And the meeting with Chloe. It's almost 10. I thought about Richard's face, his panic. Chloe wanted something, maybe a way out, or maybe a trap to make me lower my guard. We go to the bank first, I decided. Then to the cafe with a bit more information and more power. Half an hour later, we were entering the headquarters of Union Trust Bank, a stern building on Wall Street. Sophia asked to speak with the director. My name still carried weight here. Mr. Ruiz received me in his office, an older man with old-fashioned manners. He had known my father. Mrs. Sterling, I'm sorry about the circumstances, he said without offering further condolences. He was practical. How can I help you? I need to access safe deposit box 747 in my name. He nodded. He checked something on his computer. His eyebrows raised slightly. Of course. Follow me. We went down to the vault. The air was cold, the silence absolute. I inserted the key that came with the letter. He inserted his. The steel door opened with a click. Inside, there was only a thick white envelope and a small key. I opened it right there. It was a notarized document. The Silence Trust. Created on my wedding day with one signature, my father's, and a judge's. I read the figure. The world stopped for a moment. Sophia, reading over my shoulder, held her breath. My God, she whispered. It was $8 million invested for 10 years, with the returns set aside untouchable, only accessible with this document and the key. The key I held in my hand. It was more than what I brought to the Sterlings. Much more. Mr. Ruiz coughed politely. The trust is linked to a term deposit. You can withdraw it whenever you wish or reinvest it. Your father's instructions were very clear. And no one else had access, I asked. My voice sounded distant. Not my husband. Absolutely no one, ma'am. It was an express condition of the grantor. It would even survive situations of bankruptcy or personal seizure. His look was eloquent. My father had thought of everything. I want to withdraw 1 million in cash transferable to a new account, in my name only. I said the words. They came out on their own. The rest let it be. As you wish. He jotted something down. It will take a few hours to prepare. We left the bank. The New York sun was shining high. 8 million. A silent army. My army. I looked at my watch. 9:50 a.m. Chloe would be waiting. Change of plans? Sophia asked, still pale from the figure. No. I smiled. It was the first real smile of the day. Let's go have some coffee. I have a lot more to offer now. Or a lot more to lose. We walked toward the Carlisle, toward the Palm Court, toward Chloe, and toward the next move in a game that suddenly had completely new rules. The Palm Court at the Carlisle smelled of freshly brewed tea and a century of conversations, a place of mirrors and dark wood, a place where New York's elite had always done business. I sat at a table in the back, my back to the wall. Sophia took a nearby table behind a newspaper. She arrived on time. Chloe walked in as if on a runway, a cream-colored pantsuit, discreet high heels. She carried a leather portfolio. She didn't look like a scared mistress. She looked like a CEO entering her boardroom. Catherine, she said without smiling. She sat down, ordered a black coffee with a gesture to the waiter. Then she studied me. I thought you wouldn't come. Curiosity got the better of me, I replied. My hands were on the table. Still. What do you want Chloe to pass on my husband's forgiveness? A flash of something annoyance crossed her eyes. Richard doesn't know I'm here, and if he did, he'd be furious. She took a sip of water. I'll get straight to the point. I'm not what I seem. I already know that. You're the mistress who helps my husband steal from his own company. I'm a corporate intelligence analyst, she said low and clear. I work for Gester LLC. I've been embedded in your husband's life for 18 months on assignment. The words hung between us. The waiter brought her coffee. The silence filled with the clinking of cups. Embedded, I repeated, skeptical. And did your boss order you to sleep with him? My boss ordered me to get information. Her voice was cold, professional. Richard is a narcissistic womanizer. The fastest way to his files was through his bed. It was a tactic, nothing personal. I felt a sudden disgust. Not for her, for him, for his predictable stupidity. Information for what? Gester is a subsidiary of Bellamar Holdings, she said, watching me put the pieces together. Yes, the shell company he was siphoning funds to. Bellamar isn't his Catherine. It belongs to the people who hired me. My real boss wants the Sterling company cheap and in pieces. Richard was looting his own company to sell it to someone else, I said aloud. It was so stupid, so greedy that he couldn't see he was being used. Exactly, he thought he was a genius, taking a cut, and then selling the rest for a bargain when the company went bankrupt. He didn't know the buyer was the same one encouraging him to sink it. She opened her portfolio, slid a photocopy toward me. It was a draft purchase agreement signed by Richard, and on the other side, a company called Triton Capital LLC. Sale price a symbolic $1 assuming all debt. His plan was to force bankruptcy, buy it for nothing through a front man, and then inject fresh capital from Bellamar, cleaning it of debt and of you. I looked at the paper. Richard's signature, large and arrogant. He would have signed his family's legacy away for a handful of stolen coins. Why are you telling me this? I asked, looking up. If you work for them. Because my contract with Gester ended last night at 11:59 p.m. She smiled, a small, sharp smile. My job was to weaken the company and secure the signing of that contract. I did it. Now I'm a free agent, and I have information you might want to buy. Buy. Everything has a price. I know who's behind Triton Capital. I know their next move. I know the weak points of the operation. She lowered her voice even more. And I have proof that Richard personally sabotaged 3 key contracts last year to accelerate the fall. My heart pounded. This was gold. This could put him in jail for corporate malfeasance at the very least. What proof? Recordings, emails from his private accounts, account numbers abroad. She took a sip of coffee. The whole package. And your price? $200,000 and a one-way ticket to Buenos Aires. For tonight. It wasn't an unreasonable sum, not with what I'd discovered at the bank. But distrust was a knot in my stomach. Why run if your job is over? For the first time, her professional mask cracked. A flash of real fear. Because the people I work for don't take kindly to defections. And Richard, when he realizes I used him, he won't be reasonable. He has dangerous friends, the kind that don't appear in business registries. I glanced at Sophia. Behind her newspaper, she made an almost imperceptible gesture. Be careful. I need to see a sample, I said. Now. Chloe nodded, took out her phone, tapped the screen, and passed it to me. It was an audio file. I pressed play. Richard's voice clear, a little drunk. The public works contract in Dallas has to go under. Tell your contact to delay the permits to ask for more studies, whatever it takes. We need that project to never happen. It's their crown jewel. When it fails, the company's value will drop 30%. I stopped it. I couldn't listen anymore. The Dallas project. A year of my work. I had believed it was bad luck, bureaucratic problems. And it was him, my husband, sabotaging me. How did you get it? I asked, handing back the phone. A recorder in my watch. Very discreet. She shrugged. Like I said, it was my job. I stared at the rest of my coffee. The pieces fit. Her story was credible, too much so. But the risk of letting her go with that information. 100,000, I said. 50 now, 50 when the evidence is verified by my lawyer. And the ticket. She hesitated, calculated. Finally, she nodded. Accepted. But the money in a Liechtenstein account and the flight from JFK at 11:55 p.m. Iberia via Rome. Agreed. I took out my phone. Send the account details to this number. I'll prepare the transfer. We'll meet back here at 6 p.m. You'll have the confirmation and the ticket. Here, head to head. She shook her head. At JFK Terminal 4, by the Iberia check-in counter, at 9 p.m. It's safer for both of us. I nodded. She was smart. A public place full of people with easy exits. Agreed. 9 p.m. She stood up, took her portfolio. One more thing, Catherine. Her tone changed, losing its professional coldness. He never deserved you, but he also didn't deserve to be destroyed. Triton Capital. They're bigger fish hungrier. Be careful. She left, leaving half a cup of coffee and the scent of her expensive perfume. Sophia came over and sat in her place. Do you believe her? I have no choice, I sighed. I need that evidence. And she needs a way out. It's a reasonable deal. And the Triton Capital thing, that's what's next. I looked at my watch. First the lawyer, then the money, then JFK. Half an hour later, we were in Edward Roth's office, a penthouse on Park Avenue, with views of the neighborhood I had just left. Edward was older, thin, with tortoise-shell glasses. He had been my father's lawyer, a shark with a librarian's manners. Catherine. He kissed me on both cheeks. His gaze was sharp. Sophia has briefed me. The situation is explosive. I need you to verify this. I told him about Chloe, about the evidence. I showed him the purchase agreement. I told him about the trust fund. He listened without blinking, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. It's a disaster, but a disaster with a solution, he said. The proof of sabotage is crucial. With that, we can take Richard to court for fraudulent administration. Clause 12B is activated immediately, and he's likely going to jail. Likely nothing's certain, but with recordings it's very strong. He put his glasses back on. The Triton Capital thing is more worrying. That firm has a reputation. They're vulture funds. They buy broken companies, strip them and sell the assets. They're ruthless, and they have better lawyers than I do. What do you advise? Play dirty, but legally. His eyes gleamed. First, we use the trust fund to buy Sterling Enterprises debt from the banks. Right now, the banks are scared. They'll sell the debt for pennies on the dollar. If you're the main creditor, you control the bankruptcy. You can block any sale to Triton. And the money? Use $500,000 from the trust. It's more than enough. I'll talk to my contacts at the banks. We'll do it quickly and quietly. And Chloe? Do I pay her? Edward reflected. Yes, but with conditions. The transfer will be conditional. It will execute when I verify the authenticity of the evidence and from a traceable intermediary account, just in case she's lying. I felt relieved for the first time since the night before. I had a plan with teeth. Do it, Edward. Go for everything, and charge whatever you need to charge. He smiled a thin grimace. Your father already paid me, Catherine, years ago, for this exact moment. The words pierced me, my father always protecting me even from the grave. Leaving the office, Sophia spoke. And now we transfer the money to Chloe, then to JFK. Then my phone vibrated. It was a number from the court-appointed receiver's office. I answered. Mrs. Sterling, this is Clark Ferran speaking. Urgent news. Richard Sterling has just filed a lawsuit against you. My heart froze. What lawsuit? For misappropriation of marital assets and for coercion. He alleges that Clause 12B was signed under duress, that it's null and void. I cursed silently. Richard was moving fast and dirty. What does that mean? It means a judge could freeze your personal assets, including potentially the trust fund, if he can prove the original funds were marital property. The clerk's voice was grave. I have a summons for you for tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Court of First Instance, Part 42. When I hung up, the world, which for a moment had seemed stable, was teetering again. Sophia looked at me worried. What's wrong? Richard has filed a lawsuit. He wants to nullify the clause and freeze all my money. I took a deep breath. Time is running out, Sophia. We have to move faster than he does. I looked out the window at the city that had been my home and was now my battlefield. The war wasn't over. It had just changed fronts. And the enemy wasn't just my husband. It was something bigger, darker. And I had to be ready. Let's go to JFK, I said, straightening up. We have a date with a traitor and a flight to buy. JFK's Terminal 4 at 9 p.m. is a place of cold light and hurry. People dragging suitcases, announcements for distant destinations. A perfect place to not be seen or to get things done. Sophia and I sat on a metal bench opposite the Iberia counter. I was carrying a gym bag. Inside, $100,000 in bundles, the down payment. The rest was in a conditional transfer that only Edward could release. There. Sophia gestured with a slight head movement. Chloe was walking toward us, but not alone. A man was with her, tall in a dark coat. He was carrying a small rolling suitcase. Chloe looked tense, paler than at the cafe. She brought company, I muttered. We're changing the plan. Too late. They stopped in front of us. The man had the flat gaze of a security guard. He said nothing. You didn't tell me you were bringing a friend, Chloe. Precautions. Her voice sounded hoarse. He's staying here. I'm getting on that plane. She pointed toward the check-in counters. You have the money. I lifted the bag slightly. And the evidence. She took out a thick brown envelope and a small external hard drive. It's all here. The audios, the emails, the bank statements, even photos of documents from his safe. I need to verify something, quickly. She nodded. I took out my tablet, connected the hard drive. There were folders organized by date. Dallas contract, Swiss emails, recording May 12th. I opened a random audio file. Richard's voice again. Tell that idiot councilman the bribe is by wire transfer to the island's account. Nothing in cash. And if he talks, I'll bury him. I stopped it. It was enough. It was real. I closed the tablet. The ticket, she said. I showed it to her on my phone. The confirmed reservation. Buenos Aires, via Rome. Departure in 2 hours. Good. The money, please. I passed her the bag. She opened it a little, saw the bundles, nodded, and gave the suitcase to the man. He'll check in for me. I'm going through security. She handed me the envelope and the hard drive. That's everything. Now fulfill your part. Release the rest when your lawyer verifies it. I will. She hesitated for a second, as if wanting to say something more. Then she just nodded, turned around and blended into the crowd, heading for security. The man with the suitcase went in another direction, slowly. Sophia and I looked at each other. Let's go, she said. This place makes me nervous. We left the terminal. The night was cool. My phone vibrated. Edward. Catherine, I have bad news and worse news. Tell me. Richard's lawsuit. The judge has admitted the request for precautionary measures. He can freeze your personal assets in 72 hours unless we file a counter motion before then. 72 hours. Yes, and the worst part. Triton Capital has made an offer for Sterling Enterprises' debt. They want to buy it from the banks, and they'll do it first thing tomorrow morning. The air caught in my chest. They were playing dirty and fast. Can we buy it first? Yes, but we need the money today. And a bank that will do the operation at this hour. It's not easy. How much? 1.2 million. It's the fire sale price. The banks want liquidity now. I looked toward the massive airport terminal. Chloe would already be in the boarding area with her money, her one-way ticket, and me with a hard drive full of truth and a ticking clock. Do it, Edward. Use the money from the trust. Buy that debt. Now. It's 9:30 at night, Catherine. Do it! I almost shouted. I lowered my voice. Please, Edward, find someone. Pay whatever it takes. That debt is our only leverage. A silence, then a sigh. I'll try. I'll call you. I hung up. I leaned against the car. I felt the weight of the hard drive in my bag. The truth was heavy but useless if I didn't have time to use it. And now? Sophia asked. Now we go see Eleanor. She blinked. Your mother-in-law? Are you crazy? She knows things about Richard, about the company, and she's scared. I saw her face when everything went dark. It wasn't just rage, it was fear. I opened the car door, and scared people make deals. The drive to the Park Avenue mansion was silent. The streets were almost empty. The facade of the house was dark, only a dim light on the ground floor. I rang the bell. No one answered. I rang again. Finally, the door opened a few inches. It was Consuelo, the lifelong housekeeper. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Mrs. Catherine, Mr. Richard isn't here. I'm not here to see him, Consuelo. I'm here to see Mrs. Eleanor. Tell her I'm here, and if she doesn't receive me, I'll call the police to report the destruction of my property. My laptop cost $3,000. The woman paled, nodded, and closed the door. A minute later, it opened again. Come in. The madam will see you in the small sitting room. The house was silent. A different, empty silence, as if death had already moved in. Eleanor was sitting on a sofa next to the unlit fireplace. She was wearing a bathrobe. She looked like she had aged 10 years in a day. What do you want? Her voice was a rough thread, without its usual fury, just exhaustion. I want to talk about your son and what he's done. My son has been the victim of a shameless woman, of you, but the sentence had no force. Your son has been stealing from the company for 3 years, Eleanor, with the help of a woman who worked for a vulture fund. They wanted the company, and they used Richard as a useful idiot. I sat down opposite her, uninvited. Now that fund is going to buy the debt, and when they do this house, everything will be part of the package. You'll lose everything. She said nothing. She looked at the bony hands in her lap. You knew, didn't you? I said softer. Not all of it, but something. Something smelled wrong. He's my son, she murmured. He's all I have. He's going to lead you to ruin and himself to jail. I have proof, Eleanor. Recordings, documents. I can sink him. She finally looked up. Her eyes, once so fierce, were filled with fear. What do you want? Information. Everything you know about Richard's dealings in recent years. The strange friends, the late-night meetings, any documents he might have hidden here in the house. And in return, when this is over, I'll make sure you don't end up on the street. You'll have a pension, a place to live, far from him. She laughed, a dry, bitter sound. Promises, like the ones you made when you got married. Not like the ones I'm making now that I'm no longer your daughter-in-law. Now I'm the woman your son tried to destroy, and my teeth are much sharper. I studied her, the old lioness cornered. I knew she would break. It was just a matter of time. There's a box, she said at last, almost in a whisper. In his father's study, behind the portrait. Richard takes it out sometimes at night. He thinks I don't know. What's inside? I haven't seen. But once years ago I heard my husband talking to his lawyer about a deal with a company from the north. Something about gambling debts. My husband paid them, but a document remained. A very large promissory note. A promissory note. A debt document. It could be gold or it could be nothing. Bring it to me. She shook her head. I can't. The box has a lock, and Richard always carries the key. Get it. I stood up. Or lose everything. That's the offer. She turned her back to me, staring at the empty fireplace. Leave, and don't come back. I left. Sophia was waiting in the car. Something, maybe a safe in the study, with a possible promissory note for old Mr. Sterling's gambling debts. Sophia frowned. If it exists, and it's enforceable, it could be another asset or another liability. Depends on who it's owed to. My phone rang. Edward. I've got it. His tone was triumphant. I got a contact at Chase. They accepted 1.2 million. The debt is yours. The transfer is happening now. In an hour, you'll be the primary creditor of Sterling Enterprises. An immense relief flooded me. Thank you, Edward. You're a miracle. Not so fast. Triton's people will know by morning, and they're going to be furious. They're tough players, Catherine. Be ready. One more thing about Richard's lawsuit. I've prepared the counter motion, but I need you to come in first thing tomorrow to sign. And bring everything you have on him. The recordings, everything. I'll be there. I hung up. For the first time, I truly smiled. I had the debt. I had the evidence. I had a plan. Home, I said to Sophia. I need to review these files. All of them. Back at the apartment. With the hard drive connected, I immersed myself in the world of my husband's betrayals. Hours of recordings, emails full of petty orders, transfers to phantom accounts. And then I found it. An audio file, dated 2 months ago. Voices, Richard and a man. A deep voice with a northern accent. Boston, maybe. Man, the note from your father comes due April 30th. With interest. It's 1.8 million. You have the money, Richard? Not yet. The company has liquidity problems. But soon, man. I don't like soon. My boss likes it even less. Either you pay or we exercise our options. Richard. Wait. I have a deal in the works. The sale of the company. I'll pay you everything. Man. The deal with Triton. We know about it. And we don't like it. Our offer is better. We take 40% of the clean company and we forget the debt. Richard. That's robbery. Man, it's an opportunity. Think about it, Richard. Your father owed us money. You owe us favors. More expensive favors. We'll talk on Friday. The recording ended there. Sophia and I looked at each other. This was huge. Richard didn't just owe Triton. He owed someone else, someone with less bureaucratic methods. Who are they? Sophia asked. I don't know, but their boss wants 40% of the company and knows about the Triton deal. I rubbed my eyes. This is deeper than I thought. We're talking organized crime, maybe, or very shady business. I looked at the time, almost midnight. Tomorrow will be a long day. I went to bed but couldn't sleep. The pieces spun in my head. Richard Chloe Triton, the man with the deep voice and the box in the study. What else was in there? The phone rang. A private number. I answered. Mrs. Sterling, a male voice. Deep. From Boston. The one from the recording. We've spoken with Mrs. Eleanor. She says you're very interested in our affairs. I sat up in bed. My heart was pounding. Who is this? A potential partner? Or a problem? That's up to you. He paused. I propose a meeting, tomorrow noon at a quiet cafe on Beacon Hill. I'll send the address. Why should I go? Because I have information you want. And you have something I want. The promissory note. The box. And if I don't come, my next call will be to your friends at Triton to make them an offer on your new debt. The blood froze in my veins. He knew everything, or almost. What time? 12 o'clock sharp. Come alone. He hung up. I sat in the darkness. Eleanor had betrayed me, or she had been scared, or both. Now I had a date with a phantom and only a few hours to decide what I was walking into or what I was about to confront. The Beacon Hill Cafe smelled of history and stale coffee. 100 years of dust on the mirrors. At 12 o'clock, the place was half empty. A few tourists, an old man reading the paper. I sat at a table in the back, my back to the wall. I waited. He arrived at 12:05, unhurried. A man in his 50s. Dark suit, but not expensive. Salt and pepper hair, short. Large hands. He walked calmly. He sat across from me without a greeting. He gestured to the waiter. 2 coffees. Mrs. Sterling, he said. His voice was the one from the recording. Deep. Boston Irish, but softened by years in business. I'm Roy Sullivan, the man with the note. He nodded. The coffees arrived. He took a sip, no sugar. Eleanor called me last night scared. Said you were threatening to put her son in jail. It's not a threat, it's a possibility. I don't like jails, he said with a hint of a smile. They're bad for business. My boss likes them even less. And who is your boss? That doesn't matter right now. He placed his hands on the table. They were a worker's hands, with fine scars. What matters is the paper. The promissory note old man Sterling James signed 2 months before he died. From a gambling debt. Roy nodded, slightly impressed. Yes, in our room in Atlantic City. He lost a lot too much, signed a paper with interest, a legal thing, all notarized. And your husband inherited the debt with interest, almost 2 million now. The term expires in 2 weeks. He looked at me intently. He can't pay. You perhaps can. There it was, the play. They didn't want 40% of the company. They wanted fresh cash. My cash. You heard the recording, I said. You know Richard was trying to sell the company to Triton to pay you, and that I've stopped it. Yes, that complicates things. He took another sip. Triton are hungry animals. We're businessmen. We prefer a clean deal. What do you propose? You hold the company's debt now. You're the primary creditor. You can force liquidation or you can sell the assets. We'll buy Richard's note from you at a discount. A discount. 1.2 million. You pay us that amount and we forget the debt. And we give you something in return. My heart beat faster. What information about Triton Capital? About who's behind it? And about the man who hired Chloe to entangle your husband? The air caught in my throat. It was much more than I expected. Why, if they're competition, because they pulled a dirty move on us last year on a deal in the shipyards, took a contract from us with bribes. His face remained impassive, but his eyes glinted cold. We don't like being disrespected. I kept my cool. On the outside. Inside, the pieces were fitting together. A war between sharks, and me in the middle. I need proof of what you're telling me. He took out a phone, sent something. My phone vibrated. It was a file, a photo. A consulting contract between Triton Capital and a company called Gester LLC. The signature of Triton's director, a name Klaus Reinhardt. German, Roy said. Frankfurt Investment Fund. Specializes in hostile takeovers in southern Europe. Very aggressive, very little patience. And Chloe was his player. A burned asset now, that's why she ran. He put the phone away. We have more. Triton's plans for Sterling. They want the brand, the distribution network. The rest they sell off in pieces. They fire the entire workforce. It's their model. I felt a coldness in my stomach. Hundreds of families shattered by the greed of Richard and these vultures. And the note, where is it? In the box, in the study. Richard guards it like a fool. Thinks it's his insurance, but it's his noose. He leaned forward. I'll give you 24 hours. 1.2 million in cash, or a wire transfer to an account in Andorra. You choose. In return, I give you the original note and all the information on Triton with names, dates, proof. I need to see the note first. He pulled another photo from his phone, an old document paper with the letterhead of an Atlantic City casino. The signature of James Sterling, my ex-father-in-law. The amount, $950,000 with compound interest calculated to today. Total $1.85 million. It was real. 24 hours, he repeated, standing up. If not, I'll have to talk to Mr. Reinhard and sell the debt to him. For less money, but with more personal satisfaction. He left. He left half a coffee and the bill. I sat there, my heart pounding. 1.2 million, almost everything I had reserved for the war. But in exchange, Richard's debt would disappear, and I would have a weapon against Triton. My phone vibrated. Sophia. Everything okay? Yes, I'm coming back. We need to talk. Leaving the cafe, the Boston sun hit my face. It was a world of steel and glass, a world where everything was for sale, even justice. Back at the apartment, I told Sophia everything. She listened, pale. It's crazy. 1.2 million is almost all we have available. What if he's lying, if the information is worthless? We have to risk it. If Triton gets the company, we'll lose everything anyway. With this information, we can go to the media or to the SEC. We can sink their operation. And the note. If we have the original note, we have Richard in a vice. It's a personal debt. We can execute it against his share of the marital property, against that house, against everything. I ran my hands through my hair. We need to get into that house and get that box. How Richard is surely there, or the police after the lawsuit. I thought for a moment. Eleanor, she has the key or knows where it is. And you trust her? No. But she's afraid of me. And fear is sometimes better. I took my phone, dialed the house number. Consuelo answered. Mrs. Eleanor, please. A moment of silence, then her tired voice. What do you want now? The box, Eleanor. I need it tonight. Impossible. Richard's here. He's out of his mind. He's fired the staff. Only Consuelo is left, and he won't leave his study. Then you get it. He won't suspect you. Wait until he falls asleep or gets drunk, which he usually does. A sob on the other end of the line. He's my son, and he's going to drag you down with him. Do you think when Triton takes everything, they'll let you stay here? They'll throw you out on the street, Eleanor, with just the clothes on your back, just like me. I spoke slowly, clearly. Help me, and I promise you'll have an apartment and income. Away from this, away from him. A long silence, just her ragged breathing. He keeps the key on his keychain. Always. I can't. Then where is the box? Exactly. Behind James's portrait in the study. There's a sliding panel. The box is set into the wall. And the combination, it doesn't have one. It's a physical key. There's only one. I cursed mentally. What time does he go to bed? Very late lately, drinking, watching the news about the bankruptcy. When he falls asleep, call me. We'll come in. You just distract him or make sure he's asleep. This is insane. If he catches us. If we don't do this, we're both lost, I almost shouted. I lowered my voice. Eleanor, it's our only way out. Help me. Another silence, then a resigned sigh. I'll call you. I hung up. Sophia was staring at me wide-eyed. We're breaking into the house. Yes. And if she calls the police, she won't. She's more afraid of losing everything than she is of us. The afternoon passed slowly, nervously. We reviewed Chloe's files. There was more, much more. Internal Triton documents, restructuring plans, lists of mass layoffs. Klaus Reinhardt was a butcher in a suit. Edward called. The debt purchase was complete. I was officially the owner of Sterling Enterprises' debts, a strange, bitter power. Now the next thing is the hearing tomorrow, he said. Against Richard's lawsuit. I've prepared everything, including a request for precautionary measures against him for concealing debts. With the promissory note, we'll crush him. I'm working on it. It was getting dark when my phone rang. A private number. I answered. It's Consuelo. The housekeeper's voice, a terrified whisper. Mrs. Eleanor asked me to call you. Mr. Richard has fallen asleep in the study with an empty bottle of cognac. He's fast asleep. The front door. I'll leave it ajar. But please be quick. I'm scared. We'll be there in 10 minutes. I hung up. I looked at Sophia. It's time. There was no time for elaborate plans. Dressed in dark-clothed sneakers, I brought a small glass cutter and a screwdriver. Sophia carried a cloth bag. The drive was short. Park Avenue was silent. The mansion dark. Only a dim light on the upper floor. The study. The service door was ajar. An inch. I pushed. It creaked. We entered the darkness of the kitchen. I knew this house like the back of my hand. Every creak of the floorboards. We went up the service stairs, silently to the second floor. The study was at the end of the hall, the door ajar. A loud, drunken snore could be heard. I peeked my head in. Richard was slumped in the leather armchair, an empty bottle on the floor, the television on without sound. The portrait of his father, a huge oil painting, watched him from the wall. We slipped inside. The air smelled of alcohol and tobacco. Sophia stayed by the door on watch. I approached the portrait. It was heavy. I lifted it carefully. Behind it, as Eleanor said, was a wooden panel with no knob. I pressed on one side. It slid open with a soft click, revealing a small, embedded safe. Old, with a key lock. I cursed. We needed the key. I searched Richard's desk. Messy papers, a wallet. I opened it. Inside, cash cards and a keychain with several keys. I tried them one by one with trembling hands. The third one fit. I turned it. The lock gave way with a dull sound. Inside the safe were documents, old passports, some jewelry, and a yellowish envelope. I opened it. It was the promissory note, the original with James's signature, and something else. A few old black and white photos of James with a younger man at a bar, both smiling. The younger man looked like Roy. And there was another document, a sales contract for shares in a company called North Atlantic Shipping Inc., signed by James Sterling and by the man in the photo. His name was Sean Sullivan, Roy's father. Then I understood. It wasn't just a gambling debt. It was an older business debt, a partnership gone wrong. This was more personal than Roy had let on. I put everything in the bag. The note, the photos, the contract. I closed the safe. I put the panel back. I was lifting the painting to hang it when a sharp creak filled the room, the wooden floor under my foot. Richard grunted in the armchair. He moved. Who? Who's there? His voice was thick, drunk. We froze. Sophia plastered against the door, me by the painting holding it half hung. He sat up with difficulty. He looked around with glassy eyes. He didn't see us at first. The light was dim. Mum, he grunted. Then his eyes fell on me. They widened. You. He jumped up, stumbling. He crashed into the table. Thief! You've come back to rob me. I haven't touched anything of yours, Richard, I said, lowering the painting. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. I just came to get what's mine. Nothing is yours, he roared. He advanced toward me, smelling of sweat and alcohol. Everything is mine. The company, this house, everything. Sophia moved, stepping between him and me. Mr. Sterling, calm down. He shoved her aside brutally. Sophia fell against the wall. You shut up, you servant. He lunged at me. I lifted the painting like a shield. His body crashed against it. The wood cracked. His father's portrait fell to the floor. The glass shattered. Richard looked at the broken painting, his face contorted with pure rage. You broke my father, but your father would have slapped you for what you've done. I spat. He threw a punch, clumsy. I dodged it. He hit the edge of the fireplace, howling in pain. It was the moment. I pushed with all my strength. He fell backward onto the glass fragments. Let's go, I yelled to Sophia. She was already on her feet. We ran out of the study. We flew down the stairs. We heard his screams behind us. I'll come back for you. I'll kill you. The service door was still open. We burst out into the cold night. We ran to the car parked half a block away. We peeled out just as Richard appeared at the front door, barefoot, screaming incoherently into the empty street. Sophia drove, panting. Are you okay? Yes. You? Just a knock, she breathed. You got it. The note. I nodded, clutching the bag against my chest. I have it, and much more. I looked out the window. Richard's silhouette grew smaller and smaller, screaming at nothing, broken like his father's portrait. Now I had the note. I had the information on Triton. I had the company's debt. Tomorrow in court, he would be the one on the defensive. Him, not me. But as I looked at the photos I had stolen of James and Sean Sullivan smiling, I knew this didn't end with Richard. This went back further for generations, and I had just stuck my hands into a much deeper nest of vipers than I had imagined. Home, I said as New York rushed past us. We have to prepare everything for tomorrow. Tomorrow would be the first day of the real war, and I finally had ammunition. The Court of First Instance, Part 42, smelled of waxed wood and fear. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the courtroom was almost empty. A few people waited, journalists whispering. Edward, impeccable in his grey suit, reviewed papers. Richard arrived 5 minutes late. He was with his lawyer, a young guy with an arrogant air. He didn't look at me. He sat on the other side of the room. The tension was a steel cable stretched between us. The judge entered. An older man, tired face. All rise. In the matter of Sterling versus Hayes Sterling regarding precautionary measures, Richard's lawyer, a Mr. Velasco, jumped up first. Your Honour, we request the immediate freezing of the assets of the defendant, Catherine Hayes Sterling. She has proceeded with a fraudulent emptying of the marital company, causing irreparable harm to my client. We present these bank transfers as evidence. He distributed copies. Edward rose calmly. Your Honour, those transfers correspond to the exercise of a clear contractual right. Clause 12B of the prenuptial agreement, which grants my client the right to withdraw her capital contribution in case of marital infidelity or fraudulent management. What we haven't seen is the proof of the alleged coercion to sign, said clause. Velasco flushed. The proof is the context, Your Honour. A predatory clause drafted by the defendant's father, imposed on a young groom. My client was 32 years old with an MBA from Harvard when he signed it, Edward interrupted dryly. And yet it's not about that clause that we should be talking today. It's about this. Edward held up an envelope. We present as proof of the fraudulent management that justifies the clause a promissory note signed by the plaintiff's father, James Sterling. A gambling debt notarized that the plaintiff, Richard Sterling, has deliberately concealed from the marital estate and from the creditors of his company. A murmur went through the room. Richard turned pale. That's false, he shouted, getting up. Silence in the court. The judge banged his gavel. He looked at Edward. Pass me the document. The note was passed from hand to hand until it reached the judge. He studied it. Then he looked at Richard. Mr. Sterling, do you recognize this signature? Richard swallowed. His lawyer whispered something to him. It's my father's. A personal debt. It has nothing to do with the company. It amounts with interest to over $1.8 million, Edward continued. A debt that matures in days. A debt the plaintiff tried to settle with company assets, which we recall were half my client's. That Your Honour is not just concealment, it's misappropriation. The judge frowned. Do you have more? Yes, Your Honour. Edward placed the hard drive on the table. Recordings in which the plaintiff conspires to sabotage contracts of his own company in order to depreciate its value. Emails, transfers to offshore accounts. A whole scheme of embezzlement that has led the company to insolvency. My client didn't cause it. She discovered it and acted to protect what was hers. The atmosphere had turned frigid. Journalists were taking frantic notes. Richard had a lost look, his eyes fixed on the hard drive as if it were a snake. The judge took a deep breath. Very well. Given the gravity of what has been presented and the apparent solidity of the evidence, I deny the precautionary measure of freezing assets requested by the plaintiff. On the contrary, I grant the precautionary measure requested in the counterclaim. He looked at Richard. A preventive seizure of Mr. Richard Sterling's private assets is ordered for the amount of $1.8 million as security for the documented debt. And you are hereby notified that you are under investigation for a possible crime of fraudulent administration. The court officers will be outside to take your statement. Richard collapsed into his chair. His lawyer started to protest, but the judge was already rising. Session suspended. Next hearing in 15 days. In less than a minute, it was all over. Edward squeezed my arm. Good. Very good. Now let's get out of here. Quickly. We left the courtroom. In the hallway, journalists mobbed us. Mrs. Sterling, any comments? Is this the end of the Sterlings? Edward acted as a shield. No comment. Everything has been said in the courtroom. Richard came out behind us, surrounded by two court officers. As he passed me, he stopped. His look was one of pure hatred. You animal, he spat in a low voice just for me. You haven't won. Not yet. I kept walking. My heart was pounding, but with relief. We had won the first battle, the most important one. On the street, getting into the car, Sophia was smiling. So, an asset freeze for him and an investigation? I said, letting out a long sigh. Now for the next thing. Roy Sullivan. We have to close that deal. Are you going to pay him? I have no choice. I need that debt to disappear, and I need his information on Triton. I looked at the clock. Almost noon. Roy would be expecting an answer. I called the number he had given me. He answered on the first ring. Mrs. Sterling, have you made a decision? Yes, 1.2 million, but I want to meet. A physical exchange. The money for the note and for all the information. In a public place. Agreed. Central Park by the Bethesda Terrace at 5 p.m. Come alone. I'll be with my assistant. Non-negotiable. A pause. Fine. But she stays back. He hung up. The hours passed slowly. At the apartment, we reviewed all of Chloe's information again. Klaus Reinhard Triton Capital, their modus operandi. They were efficient, ruthless, and now angry. At 4:30, we were in the park. The afternoon was cool, the park full of people. A good place difficult for a trap. We approached the grand terrace. Roy was already there, sitting on a bench reading a newspaper. I sat next to him. Sophia stood a few feet away, watching. Do you have the money? He asked without looking at me. Transfer ready. Give me the account number. But first, I want to see everything. He took out a thin folder. The original note as agreed. And he placed it on the newspaper. I checked it. It was the same. And this, he added a flash drive. Complete dossiers on Triton. Structure operations in the US. Names of front men and bribes to politicians to journalists. It's dynamite. How did you get it? We have our methods too. For the first time, he cracked a half smile. They hurt us. This is revenge and good business. I passed him a paper with the details of the account in Andorra. The transfer will execute as soon as I verify the contents of the drive. In an hour. He nodded. Fair enough. But a warning, Mrs. Sterling. Reinhard already knows you hold the debt, and he doesn't like it. They're used to winning. They're moving pieces. Be careful with your lawyer. A prick of cold. Edward, no, the other one. The young one, Velasco. He's much more expensive than Richard can afford. Think about who's paying his salary. He folded the newspaper. The deal is done. Good luck. You're going to need it. He walked away, blending in with the strolling crowd. Sophia approached. Everything okay? I don't know, I murmured, clutching the folder and the flash drive. He says Velasco Richard's lawyer is being paid by Triton. Sophia frowned. That would mean Triton is backing Richard legally to wear you down, or to find something to use against you. I stood up. Let's go. I have to see this. Back at the apartment, I plugged in the flash drive. It was as Roy had said. Detailed, brutal information. Triton had tentacles everywhere, and their plan for Sterling was even worse than imagined. They wanted the main factory on the outskirts of the city. The land was worth a fortune, The rest, including the century-old brand, they would trash. The employees were disposable. Among the documents was one that froze my blood. An intelligence report on me with recent photos of me entering and leaving the apartment. It included a paragraph, subject Catherine Hayes Sterling, profile resilient, intelligent, impulsive, due to revenge, likely weak point loyalty to her collaborators. See Sophia M. Pressure on them could achieve concessions. I looked at Sophia, who was reviewing other papers. They didn't know she was my strength, not my weakness, but the threat was clear. My phone rang. It was Edward. His voice sounded strange, tense. "Catherine, something's happened." "What?" "I just received a summons from the SEC. They're investigating the purchase of Sterling Enterprises debt. They're alleging possible use of inside information. That you, as the wife, knew the company would go bankrupt and bought its debt to profit from it. That's absurd. I bought it to stop Triton from getting it." "I know, but it's a serious accusation. They can freeze the operation and fine you. And there's more." He hesitated. "They've frozen my professional accounts, Catherine, as part of the investigation. I can't officially represent you anymore until this is cleared up. It's a conflict of interest." I leaned against the wall. It was a masterstroke. Dirty legal. They were taking away my lawyer, my best defense. "This is Triton," I said, my mouth dry. "No doubt. They have influence. They've moved their pieces very quickly." Edward sounded furious and frustrated. "I recommend a colleague, Michael Soriano. He's good. The best in corporate law. I'll call him now." "Edward, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. It's war. Be careful, Catherine. You're on the legal front line alone now." I hung up. The euphoria of the morning had evaporated. Now I had the SEC investigating me and my lawyer sidelined. Sophia looked at me worried. "What do we do?" "We call Soriano, and we prepare the counter-offensive." I ran my hands over my face. "We have Roy's information. We can leak it to the press, let them know how Triton operates, tarnish their name. And if it's dangerous, everything is dangerous now." I looked out the window. Night was falling over New York. "But we can't stand still. If they attack us on one flank, we counterattack on another." I waited an hour. I confirmed that the transfer to Roy had gone through. The note was mine. That debt erased, one down. Then I called an economics journalist, one my father had had good relations with. I told him anonymously that I had explosive information about vulture funds and bribery. We arranged to meet at a safe bar in the West Village in an hour. "I'm going with you," Sophia said firmly. "No. It's more dangerous. Stay here. If something happens to me, you have copies of everything. Release them to all the media." She wanted to protest, but she nodded. "Be careful." I left. The night was dark. In the bar, a discreet place, the journalist, a man in his 50s named Rafa, was already waiting. "It's been years since I've heard from you, Catherine. Sorry about your father." "Thanks, Rafa. This is about what came after." I put a copy of the flash drive on the table. "Everything's in here. Triton Capital. Bribes to officials to accelerate bankruptcies. Planned layoff lists. The operation on Sterling Enterprises. It's yours. But you can't let them know it came from me." He took the drive. Serious. "This is heavy stuff. It could take down a few heads." "That's the idea. And what do you get out of it?" "Time. And a little bit of justice." He nodded. "It'll be front-page news tomorrow. Online tonight." He pocketed the drive. "Take care, Catherine. These people don't play." I left the bar. I felt a little lighter. I had launched the counterattack. Now to wait for the reaction. I was walking toward where I had left the car on a side street. when I noticed something. A black car with the engine idling on the other side of the street. There was no one inside, but it was watching me. I felt it. I quickened my pace. I heard footsteps behind me. Fast. More than one person. I didn't run. It would be useless. I stopped and turned my hand in my purse where I carried a small can of pepper spray. Two large men, track jackets. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Reinhard wants to talk to you. Now. I have nothing to talk about with that man, I said in a firm voice. We insist. One of them took a step forward. At that moment, blinding headlights lit up the street. A car screeched to a halt beside me. The window rolled down. It was Sophia. Get in, she shouted. I didn't think twice. I opened the door and jumped in. Sophia floored it before the door was even closed. The two men jumped back. In the rearview mirror, I saw them get into the black car. How did you know? I gasped, buckling my seatbelt. I followed you just in case. I saw the car. I smelled a trap. She swerved sharply, weaving through narrow streets. Where to? The police. No, not yet. I took a deep breath. Home, but not to the apartment. Somewhere else. Klaus Reinhard wasn't just playing with lawyers and papers anymore. Now he was playing with thugs. The war had escalated, and I had to be ready for whatever came next. I looked out the window. New York passed in a blur. It was no longer my city. It was a chessboard, and I was a piece refusing to be captured. Tomorrow the press would explode, and then everything would change again. But for now, only one thing mattered, being alive to see it.